Hi, I'm Kate from Tiger Ink. We work with Archer Business Group's publishing arm, Bowyer Books, and we spoke recently with the author of a new book called The Cuban Approach. Last time, the author Paquita Lamacraft used photos from the trip that inspired the book to give some new insight into its positive philosophy. Today we'll travel again with her in some out-of-the-way places of Cuba with some new images. Where do we start?
Well, it wouldn't be Cuba if we didn't start with a classic auto. So one of the things that you notice on the main highways of Cuba are fabulous, the arterial ones. As I say in the book, they would make a Paris or Italian peak hour. They could accommodate it quite well, and since there are no lines, it would work very well in either place. But when you're going out into the more remote areas, you find quite a diversity of traffic. And so let's go through and see. So we'll follow this rather classic vehicle. And there's the contrast of a more rural community.
Slightly more classic.
Slightly more classic. And horses are quite prized possessions because they're not only, they give transport and they give for people and for goods. You see a lot of oxen, carts, and you can see he's on the tray that he's using to just so they're dragging him along, and he would normally have his plough, but it's just the tray at the moment. And the ox yoke are carved out of wood, and very often I have noticed that they'll have a horse on a yoke, but it's the inverted ox hame, the actual collar is inverted, right. which works for a horse, but not if they're pulling heavy load. It puts extra stress on the animal. You wouldn't expect to find that out in the middle of nowhere, but this gentleman is taking his heavy load in the rain to who knows where, from who knows where, and it makes you realize how incredibly fortunate we all are, that we don't have to resort to this sort of real hardness of life, actually. And I love this, because who would expect to find a young man on roller skates
in the middle of nowhere?
It's in the middle of nowhere. And he was travelling, there was no city just behind or village, and there was no village over the hill. He was in the wide beyond. So I imagine he's one of the future Olympians of, of Cuba. We passed this tobacco-laden vehicle, and the tobacco is wrapped in banana leaves. And I'd never seen anything wrapped in banana leaves before, but it has very antibacterial qualities, and apparently used to be used a lot in former times worldwide for packaging for that reason. And you see the banana leaves being dried along the road as you're going along. Everything's a commodity, and you can see they've been sort of opened up at the end, so they lie flat. And this was the most surreal experience I think I've ever had on a road, where we went to a tower, we came down the tower, and it was obviously being a tower at the top of a hill, and we came down the road, and the road travelled with us. It was most peculiar. It was so hot, and the road was made in such a fashion, not probably as stable as it may be.
No.
So that all the vehicles that have travelled on it have made it quite malleable. And as your heavy vehicle goes over it, the road comes with you, so that you have this sort of undulating feel.
Waves.
Very strange. And how does this little piggy get to market?
Like that?
Like that. These poor piggies, there were 4 of them there, 2 facing one way and 2 facing the other, on their way to wherever. I felt quite sorry for them as I passed. And this poor chap is just absolutely exhausted, and for good reason. This is quite a heavy load by anybody's measure that he's been pulling by hand, and he's just taking a smoko. And you of course see lots of cars, the old classic vehicles, and this one's, still needs a bit more work, and this one is in pretty good condition. But if you have a good car, or you have a car that works, then you can put it out to hire for people to take them between points. The railway system's notoriously poor, and can take a long time with delays and what have you. And the buses, well, there's the bus.
I was going to
country
ask
bus.
about buses. Answers that.
There's the bus, and gives it, and you see a bus stop in the middle of nowhere. You're just out in, and there's no town or hamlet, or there's a bus stop, and you think, where are the people coming from? And we stopped and picked up a young mother and her child who were very happy to have air conditioning as well as a prompt, because the buses are not always to schedule. So it's very nice if you can have your own transport. And in this case, this horse is very well equipped, but it's not always the case, and you see a lot of improvisation in the way that people have actually taken a couple of belts and then put fabric underneath so that it's padded under the horse's belly.
Wow.
And all sorts of innovative ways, so that if you don't have the resources, you have to make do with what you have. So there we are. It's a real insight just travelling the roads before you even get to any of the places you're going. And it gives you, again, pause for giving thanks of the fact that the things that you took as being difficult in your life, maybe you should put some perspective on them. And it's all part of the art of letting go, is changing your perspective on the things that are perhaps concerning you in a way that, if you put a different perspective on it, might cause you to think differently.
Definitely.